want to access from my second element till the last element. So you don't actually, so there are two ways. Either you can count all the indexing and then you can write the index number that y ends at, or the next best or the easy way to do is you just write 2 colon and don't write anything. So what this means is that Python understands this as the user is trying to get or access the string from element number 2 till end, whatever the string is, whatever the end portion of the string is, right? So you don't have to actually give like the end portion of an element. So it will automatically count till the end. Dia is a country, right? This is one way. Like this is also known as a forward accessing. Like you access from the starting point. You can also access it from like a I won't give an index number here. I can give an index number 0 as well. But let's say if I want to index it from like a starting point till something, let's say I write 10. So from this to 10, I will just print my function and this will give me India is a, right? And if you want to just print this string, the whole string, you will just write print str and it will give you the whole string, whatever the string is, right? Is it two main operators that are involved in string, or whether be it a list or whether be it a tuples? Those are known as your star and plus. That is this one. A star is known as a repetition operator and a plus is known as a concatenation operator. So let's say you want to repeat certain element multiple times. So what you guys do is that you just have to add star to that string and repeat that string multiple times, however times you want it, right? And if you want, sometimes what happens is you have written a string and you forgot something to add in that string, right? So what you guys can do, instead of just going to that string and writing it again, you just add a plus and write the letter there as well. So we'll see how this thing works out. So for example, I've defined India as a country as a string. So let's make it a bit easy. Let's say I define just India and I want this to be printed, let's say 2 times. So what I will do is I'll just write str star 2 and I'll just print it. So it will give me India, India, right? So it is basically repeating the string 2 times. And no matter how many times you give, you can write 10 here, it will repeat the same string 10 times. India, 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 India in this way, right? So this is how you can like write, repeat a particular string. Also, you can add something. Let's say I want to write India is a country, but I forgot to write is country, right? So what you can do is that you can just write print str and then you can just write a plus sign and then you have to write is a country. Now is a country, okay, tell me one thing I would like to ask you guys, because I want to add something in the already existing string. Now my already existing string here is India and I want to add is country. So should I write is country in double quotes? Should I write it in single quotes, or should I write it as it is without any quotes? So you can use anything. You can use double quotes. You can also use single quotes. It won't matter because Python won't differentiate it. But because you are writing a string, it should be in quotes, right? It can't be without your quotes. It have to be in a double or a single quote. So then you can just write is a country, and then you can print it, and this will be your like an updated string that you have now printed out. So India is a country, right? Then you can just give a space here. So because here the space is not there, so you can just write a space here and it will count when you print the output, your space will be shown there, right? So this is how you can update your already written string. Even if you like, if you have forgotten something to add in that string, you can update it this way, right? Is this clear with everyone?
So I have a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we want to add something in the string when we can just go edit the code as it is?
Yeah, so what happens is now here, see, what happens here is because it's a very short string, right? I just written what happens in bioinfo is that when you are writing, because in bioinformatics you have a large amount of DNA sequence with you, right? So now what happens is, let's say in certain you forgot to add something in a DNA sequence, right? So now it becomes really tough on the user side to go and actually see where we have made a mistake or where we forgot to write something, right? Then becomes quite tedious job to go and screen out all the DNA sequence and then to see what was the particular point where you forgot to write your or insert your particular number. Then it becomes really easy for you to print it in this way. We'll also be studying. So this is so today's lecture is just basically an overview of the data types. In the coming lectures, we will be looking more details about the individual data types. Then we will be seeing how you can introduce something in between your string as well. For example, let's say you have written a DNA code and you forgot to write C in between T and G. Then you can always go and update your string while writing C in between those numbers, right?
Okay,
Is it
thank you.
clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we will be moving further with another data type, that is your list. Now, list is a very versatile type of data types. So as you know, when the name suggests, list is basically something that contains a number of n number of things. It can be your string, it can be your integer, it can be your float point. It is basically a very much similar thing like that of an array, but the basic difference between list and array is, just keep this thing in mind. In list can contain any kind of data, any kind of thing, like it can contain integer, it can contain float points, it can contain your strings as well. But an array will always contain a single type of data sets. So if you are creating an array of integers, so that array should always consist an integer only. It can't consist integer along with a string, then it will give you an error, right? So this is the very basic difference between a list and an array. Rest everything is almost same between the array and the list, but this is the basic difference. List can include n number of data types, but array will only consist of one type of data type, right? Now, what happens is the same way what we have studied in string, how to access individual values from the slice operator using this slice operator and the colon, or the repetition operator and concatenation. In the same way, you will apply all those things in list as well. So we'll just take an example here. Let's say we have these two lists together with us. So what we can do is just let me just copy this and paste it here. So let's say we have these two lists. Now see, let's say list number one. Now see this, as I already told you, list can contain n number of data types, right? So this list contains a string, an integer value, a float point, another string, another integer value, and this is my another list, list number two, right? So whatever we have already studied in the strings, the same operators will be used in list as well. The same operator will be used and tuples as well to access all those individual elements, right? So if you want to just print your list, you can just write print list one, and you can write print list two. And when you print it, the Python will give you all the list as it is. Just a second. What's the error? Line number one. Just a second. Let me just write the list. Okay, so you have written a list. Sorry, there was some problem in that particular list. I guess I just copy pasted it, so that's why there was some indentation error. So as I wrote any kind of list, and you just print your list, and this will be the output. The output will be given in this way, right? Now, sometimes what happens is you have, as I already told you now, I have an indentation error. So we'll be also talking about what indentation is. So just keep this thing in mind whenever you run a loop. Let's say I have written something, let's say if whatever the argument is. So you see when you press enter, your cursor automatically starts here. Your cursor don't starts from like below I, it starts from below the column. So this is what is known as indentation, that in Python everything is structured in some way. that these are the certain rules that you can't unfollow. You have to follow these rules. So what happens if you write something and if it shows an indentation error, that means somewhere or the other you have gone out of that format. You're not following that particular format that is inbuilt in Python, right? So whenever you write if, it will always start from below the colon. It won't start from here. If it starts from here, it will always show you an indentation error, that the alignment of those structured loops are not in the right way. So we'll study about these as well when we study about the loop, right? So this way you can access a particular list. Now you can always like access an individual element as well. Let's say I want a particular element, so you will just give your element in the form of a slice operator. You can give your element, like let's say 0th element I want, so it will give you your result as 100. You write it 1, it will give you 10.0. You write it 2, it will give you your string, that is Raj, right? And the same thing you can apply in the form of range as well. Here when if I write let's say 1 to 2, it will just okay, what do you think will be the output here if I write a range as 1 to 2? A quick guess if anyone can tell me.
uh, 10.0 and the string Raj.
Okay, anyone else? No. So just remember what I told you previously in strings. Whenever you are giving a range, it will always consider the first element, but it won't consider 2. It will consider it 1 less than 2, right? So it won't give you Raj. It will just give you 10. It won't give you like the second element, because it will always consider it below 1 less than what you have given as the uppermost limit for that slice operator, right? So if you print it, sometimes what happens is you can get an error here as well, right? But sometimes you won't. So let's say so see, I just got 10. Didn't got Raj, because 2 doesn't consider, because Python doesn't consider this upper range. It will always consider 1 less than this upper range, right? So it will always give you 10. So if you want to print Raj as well, you just delete 2 here. So this means from 1 till the end of the list, whatever is from first element, whatever is after that, it will print as it is, right? So 1 till the end of the list, it will give you 10 and Raj as well. Okay. Also, sometimes what happens is you have, let's say in certain cases, you have written you have taken 2 DNA sequences, right? And you want to add those 2 DNA sequences together. And let's say you have written those DNA sequence in a form of a list or in a form of a string. Then you can concatenate those 2 things together by using the plus sign. So let's say if I have another list, let's say I have list 2, and in that I have given, let's say 0.2, and you can give another string, let's say India only, right? And then what you can do is you can always concatenate these 2 together. So what you can do is you can just write list 1 plus list 2, and you like print it. It will give you the output consisting of both of this list. So 100, 10.0 and Raj from the first list, 0.2 and India from the second list. So in this way you can concatenate these 2 things together as well, right? So this is how our basic concatenation things work, and this is the same with string as well as list as well as with the tuples as well. Okay. So next thing that we will be understanding is that tuples. Now, whatever you have learned in list, it is as it is in the tuple only. The only difference between the tuple and a list is tuple are read only. That means you can't update a, tuple. You can always update a list, but you can't update a tuple. For example, let me just give you a basic example of how you can update your list. So let's say you have a list, and this list consists of let's say anything, let's say ABCD, and then you have, let's say 1000, 10.0, and let's say take another example. So this is a list, and in the same way you can write a tuple. So what you do is that you write tuple, and the way to write a tuple is you will always write a tuple with a parenthesis. So a list will always start with a square bracket, but a tuple will always start with a parenthesis, right? And whatever, let's say we write the same thing here as well. ABCD 1000, 10.0, and let's say, right? Now let's say what happens is you realize that let's just comment this out for now. Now let's say you just realize that, oh, you have the first element of this list, you have written something wrong here, right? And you want to change it, but without changing the parameter here. You don't want to change the element here because it's let's say it's a tedious job for you to go back here and change everything. So how you can do it? You can just change. You can just access the element from this list and assign it another value. So how would you access? Let's say I want to access the second element. So I will write list 2. So this means I am accessing the second element from the list, and then I will give it a particular value. Let's say I give it 0.3, right? So what this means is here the second element of this list was 10, right? Now I have accessed this second element of the list, that is 10, and I have updated its value to 0.3. And now if I print my list, it will give me the output as the updated list. That is, instead of 10, here it will be 0.3, right? Because here you have updated your list. Now this process you can't do in the case of a tuple. Tuple doesn't support this kind of things. So let's say you have a tuple here in the same way, and you access your second element of your tuple, right? And you replace it with a 0.3, and then you just print tuple. So it will give you an error, right? Why? Because the tuple object does not support item assignment. That is, once you have created a tuple, you can't update it anymore. Now it is stored in that way only. So now if you want to update it, you always have to go back to your tuple here, and then you have to update your value here only. Physically you have to change the value to 0.3. You can't access the value from tuple and change it as it is, right? And then you can always print your tuple, and your tuple will be printed as it is here. So it will give you ABCD 1000 0.3 John, right? So this is a very basic difference between a list and a tuple, right? That is, in list you can always access an element, update it, and then you can print your updated list. But that is not possible in tuple. That is the very first basic difference. Second difference is, whenever you are writing a list, it will always start with a square bracket, and whenever you are writing a tuple, it will always start with a parentheses, right? Is there, like, anyone has any doubt up until now?
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll quickly come to the last data type that we have, which is the dictionary, right? Now, as you all know, that dictionaries are basically something that contains the meaning of a particular word, right? So in the same way, Python also has dictionaries, but instead of meaning, we have values, and instead of words, we have keys. So just replace whatever you know about dictionary with keys and values. So let's say you're searching for a word, let's say cat, in a dictionary. So that cat is a word, and corresponding to that cat, there will be a definition in the dictionary. So here in Python, that cat, that word is basically what is known as a key, and the definition of that cat is known as a value in Python. So here you have a key value pair type of thing in a dictionary, right? Now the usage of dictionary came into existence because sometimes what happened was, while creating a list, the list went on for a really long, it was taking a long time to write all of those things in a list. So what people thought was, why not just create a dictionary and store it in a form, so that whenever you want, you can always access that dictionary, and you can always access a particular element from that dictionary, right? So it became really easy for the people who are working in the industry, or who are working in the research field, to just create something and store it, and whenever you want something, you can always access it from that point. You don't have to create the list every time you want to run a particular program, right? So that's how the existence of dictionary came into play, right? And now the term dictionaries can be used in two ways. Now the first way to use a dictionary is that you can create a particular dictionary consisting of a key and a value pair. Also, sometimes dictionary is used in the terms of Python package. Like, there are certain Python packages where people will be using the term dictionary for those things as well. So don't just get confused. If you know the basic understanding, you will be able to differentiate between a Python package dictionary and what the user defined dictionary is, right? So we'll be basically looking how you can build a dictionary. So as you know, list always starts with a square bracket. tuple always starts with a parenthesis. Dictionary will always start with a curly bracket. So let's say I have defined a dictionary. It will always start with this curly bracket, right? So this is like a basic syntax for a dictionary. Now let's say what you can do is you can define something in this dictionary as your key and your value, right? So just in your, as in your case of a dictionary, you have word and meanings. Here also first you have to define a key, and then corresponding to that key you have to define the value. Then only Python will be able to store that particular key and value together. So how would you do it? So let's say I have a key called as name. Let's say I have a person, right, and he's working in a company. His company code is something, and he is working in the marketing department. And I want to print, I want to store these things in a dictionary, and that dictionary will be dedicated to that particular person only. So what I can do is I can write, create 3 columns where I will be defining his name. His basically his dictionary will be containing his name, his ID code, and his department of work. So name. Now how would you do it? So because I am writing name, name is a string, so that's why I have included it in double quotes. And then you just have to add a colon here, right? What this colon means is corresponding to this name now becomes a key for that particular person. You will give the value, that is what is its name. So the name of the person, you can write anything, XYZ, whatever it is. And because it is a name, then you also have to include the name in the double quotes or single quotes, because a name is a string. Then you will write a comma, right? So whatever is before the comma, so this thing now becomes your key, that is your name, and the value for that key. So what is the name? XYZ, whatever it is, right? Similarly, we can write another key, which is, let's say, code of the person. So we will write code, and corresponding to that code I have to give a value. So let's say his ID code is 012, something like this. And because I have written 012, it is an integer value, right? So I don't have to write it in double quotes or single quotes, anything. I can write it as it is. And then let's say our third key is his department, right? And let's say he's working in marketing. So marketing. So because I have written department and marketing, both of these two terms are strings. So that's why I have to include it in double quotes, right? So I can write it in this way. And then what you have to do is just access your dictionary. So you will just write print, and you will write your whatever your name of dictionary is, and just print it. The output will always give you the dictionary in what is this? It says invalid token. Just a sec. So basically what happens is, because you have, I wrote 012, so that always means 12 only, right? So you can't start it with 0, you always have to start it with 1 or 2. You don't have to write 0. You can write it as 0 point something, then it would be good. But because I wrote 012, then that only means it is 12. So instead of writing 012, you can just write 12. And similarly, if you want to, let's say, if you want to access particular key and value as well, right? So what you can do is you can always just write print dictionary dot keys. So it will give you the corresponding key value here. So it will say dict underscore keys, whatever the keys are there in this particular dictionary, it will give you the result of those things like name, code, and department. So name, code, and department are the keys. In the same way, you can access your values. So we'll just write print and dictionary dot values, and you can just write you just run it, it will give you the values as well. So the dict underscore values, so corresponding to these keys, these are the values, x12 and marketing, xyz 12 and marketing. So in this way, dictionary becomes useful. For example, let's say you are running a company and you want to create individual profile of your employees. So what you can do is you can create a dictionary for that particular employee, and you can write a number of things in there, all the details that that person is, name, his address, his employment ID code, his department of working, his salary, whatever you want. And then you can just access your dictionary. You don't have to go and search everything about that person. You can just access that person's name, whatever name is that is stored in the dictionary. You can just access that dictionary and it will give you all the details about that employee.